Welcome to Rotten Taste, where we look at movies that score less than 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Today, we are looking at Hudson Hawk. Now, this
Yes.
movie stars Bruce Willis, and I didn't realize this. He created the story. It's a story by Bruce Willis, so I don't know how much input he had into it, too. And it has a 33% Rotten Tomatoes score on it. This movie
Hmm.
came out in 1991. Now, before we get into obviously this whole movie, this is considered one of his biggest bombs. I got to say something. I watching it, I did not realize this was an R-rated movie, and let me explain. And I know
Okay.
it's confusing because this movie came out in '91. I know I was probably 14, 15 when I saw this a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm watching this movie, the other night. And they dropped the F bomb. I'm like, wow, they dropped the F bomb early in this one, because I always know PG-13. For those who don't know, you can say one F bomb, two F bombs, you're an R. And then they
Oh,
said another
I
one.
did not know that.
Yes, you can actually say the F word once in a PG-13 movie. But then when they started saying it again, I'm like, wait a second. So, I paused and I looked into R, and I'm like, I don't remember this being an R-rated movie. And then it dawned on me. So I know I saw this a lot of my dad's and during the daytime. And then I'm like, I don't think I ever saw the actual full film. I think I saw this like on TBS, TNT, I don't know which one, but made for TV. And
Ah.
it was like, but it wasn't like a one time thing. It was always on. And I remember
Hmm.
watching this a few times, juvenile me. And we're going to get into some of the juvenile shit in this movie. And I loved it. Now,
Yep.
rewatching it,
Hmm.
obviously there's some things I love. And, like, oh my God, like I totally forgot. For me, it's been 30 years. But yeah, I didn't even realize this was an R-rated movie, and I have to admit, I think that might have been why it was a bomb. Because if this was PG-13, teens like us would have gotten to see this more.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
but
still
yes, for
saw
the
it a ton, but yes.
we saw it, we found ways. But yes, this stars Bruce Willis, and he's a cat burglar, as they like to say. Just getting out of prison, and
Hmm.
it starts off like, and I forget that it starts off like the Da Vinci era, and he finds a way with these fucking crystals, three crystals, to
Yes.
manage to
Yeah.
make gold. Like, and I'm
Yep.
like, wait, this happened? Like, again, mind you, a lot of this is going to come back to me because I have not seen this in a while. I remember the end, which we'll get to,
Hmm.
and I remember a
Oh
couple
God,
scenes, but
I
outside of
can't
that,
wait.
I did not remember a lot of this film, and I was surprised rewatching this. But yes, this starts off like
Yeah.
as a period piece, and they're talking like Da
Hmm.
Vinci created this thing, and you see, as he's looking at some of his sculptures, and
Yeah.
you don't realize what's going on then, but you realize he's hiding this. He knows that this is going to be problematic. But yes, Bruce Willis, fast forward, however many hundred years later, he gets out of prison. His buddy picks him up, and he just starts on this adventure. And I don't know, this movie jumps around to me in the first half. The second half, I think, is when it gets better and gets, it gets going and gets better. But it's like,
Hmm.
okay, we're in this era, then we're like in the gangster era, and I'm like, I think it took a bit for this movie to get its feel. What did you think when you, well, maybe first saw it and rewatched it more recently?
Oh my God. So I have seen Hudson Hawk a lot more than I've seen the other two movies. I feel like it started with me obviously watching it on TV and seeing it all the time. I've seen it in all forms, so the swears weren't a thing for me. And then in college, my buddies and I would watch Hudson Hawk and laugh at just, how dumb it was. So rewatching it again, so I have a much different memory of like a lot of the things I remember in Hudson Hawk like pretty clearly, and I forgive them and kind of actually look forward to some of the things that happen in there from obviously keeping time on all the music
Yep.
like little references that they have, um, how he's like the stupid thing of how he's trying to just have a cappuccino from the very beginning. um, just their overall conversation, everything like that. It's just this is a movie, like you said, you're right. It is made for 12 and 13-year-olds. That's the level of humor in this film. And if you have that humor inside of you, where you're just an overgrown 12-year-old, you will find this movie funny. And I happen to like Bruce Willis as well, and I think that your like of Bruce Willis, because again, this is another movie in our series that is a basically a vehicle for the actor in it. But if you like Bruce Willis, I think that you're going to forgive a lot of the things that happen because it really is like a live action cartoon. That's how I feel about this movie.
Correct. And it starts off, you figure that out right away, going back to the Da Vinci era, and he's painting the Mona Lisa. And what's the first thing? Mona
Yes.
Lisa smiles, and it's just those rotten teeth, and you're like, that's why she doesn't smile. So, yes, this is a very juvenile movie, but
Yes.
that's what, get back to my original point, it being R-rated, it kind of offsets. I'm kind of curious why Bruce Willis thought this, to do this. The cappuccino, the running gag, like
Yeah.
not just that, the times of songs. I'm like, where does this even come from? I mean, they're just like, names of songs like 3 minutes 25 seconds, like, why?
Yeah.
Why is this in your fucking brain?
It's the Emilio Estevez effect. You're just like, I want to put this one thing that I think would be personally hilarious into a movie for no other reason other than the fact that it's story by me.
So yeah,
100%.
so the story starts that these people want Bruce Willis to I forget the first piece that he's trying to steal, but they want him to do
Hmm.
this job. He just gets out and like, you're going to do this job, and he's
Yeah.
at the bar, which is now changed, and then all of a sudden this is where you just realize, what the fuck's this movie? His buddy's there with the champagne bottle, just fucking knocks the guy out, breaks everywhere, and everyone's just so calm about it. And before that, to get Bruce Willis's attention, that's right, he's about to have his cappuccino. That's all he fucking wants.
That's all
and
he
then
wants,
a
yep.
gunshots, the cappuccino, and he's just like, nonchalant about it. I'm like, someone just fucking shot a gun. They're all looking. I'm like, hey, come here. Like, you just shot a gun at me, and you want me to come talk to you? Like, no one else cares that a gunshot happened at this bar. No one else really cared,
Yeah.
for the most part. And yeah, so you have to have this kind of mentality going into the movie. You have to have, for lack of better
Hmm.
terms, a silly, stupid sense of humor to enjoy the scenes. And that, I think, is why I did like it as a kid. And I enjoyed a lot of parts of it now. Looking at the movie as a whole, is stupid. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but you take it in its parts, you're just like, it is hilarious in its parts, and I think that's what makes it enjoyable. But yes, if you do not have a silly, stupid sense of humor, you're going to hate this film. This is going to be a bad watch. You're going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, yeah. Like I wouldn't watch this around mixed company for sure. I think that drinking helps.
Yep.
That helps get you down to the level that you need to be for this movie. But to circle back to your point that you made about the rated R thing, it's unusual how much violence there actually is in this movie if you think about it. And then even like the weird random, like when they're showing the slideshows, and then it's like you have the two main bad guys, the Darwin and Minerva, and they're like in sexually compromising like positions, like randomly too, like in some like S&M kind of a shit, and you're like, where the fuck did that come from? Okay. So there's random shit like that just peppered throughout this movie that I think that's what just takes it over the edge. I mean, I just was surprised how many people died in this movie.
Yeah, but even the parts, it wasn't overly bloody. Yes, there is that suggestive scene, but nothing outside of the swearing. Nothing to me screamed out an R rated in this. But it is, I don't know, kind of the randomness, and yeah, characters do die, and well, so I'm watching this, and then all of a sudden,
Hmm.
he's in the auction place, and I
Yeah.
forgot about this, so it came back to me once, but seeing this, I'm like, and they're all eating candy bars. Like, you see a guy eating a Kit Kat, I'm like, wow, that's a weird product placement. And then you see somebody like eating Almond Joy, I'm like, what the fuck
Yes.
is going on? So again, my point of view, because it has been many years, I'm like, why are all these people just eating candy bars? Like, like they're perfectly showing it for the camera. And then it's like, oh yeah, these are the code names. I'm like, what the fuck? Then you learn like their passcode names are like sexually transmitted diseases. And I'm like, how do we go
Yeah.
from that to candy bars? I'm like, what kind of organization? But I started laughing. I'm just like, I like Kit Kat. He seems like a cool dude. Butterfinger,
Yeah.
obviously, he becomes, once you learn, he's the big doof. He's the comic relief.
Yeah.
But
Kind.
before we get
Yeah.
to that, there's always dumb characters. I don't know what it is about us in the 80s and 90s and dumb characters and dumb security guards. Bruce Willis and Danny, they're breaking into the place and they're using
Oh God.
skateboards and they're just mildly skateboarding and then they start singing. I'm like,
Yes.
what the fuck? Would you like to be a fish? And I'm just wait. Maybe that's why Bruce Willis like, do I get to sing in this movie? Yes, I'm in. That was the story credit. He's like, I
Yeah.
want to sing, and oh my god, I don't even know where to continue from here. But yeah, so the
Yeah.
characters are a little bit cartoonish, a lot juvenile. Like I said, Butterfinger, he's like, and I don't know. It is such a random movie. It's like random parts are put together. in a way
Yeah.
that it kind of works.
Works for me just fine. I mean, I said this for Over the Top, where it's like it does everything it needs to do, within that time frame. There were parts that met at work where I was like, okay, I don't understand how that plot like point gets washed over, but in Hudson Hawk, it's just like, okay, yep, we're doing this, yep, we're doing this, okay, yeah. And the overarching thing is that they have to get this part of Leonardo da Vinci's like mechanism that turns the gold or turns lead into gold, like alchemy
Correct.
and shit like that. And then you kind of have just characters all around it and everything. And I think to your point about the story he was probably like, what if we were cat burglars? And then when we were robbing places, we would also sing old time songs and we would count down and we would do it. It would be hilarious. And they're like, okay, great. Will you sign on and do it? And he was like, absolutely. And then the rest they just kind of made up.
Pretty much. I mean,
I'm okay
all
with
right.
that. It's another vehicle. My goodness, he was just like awesome. This sounds great, and I like Danny Aiello, and I think his character is one of my favorite parts of the movie. So
Yeah, because it's like he dies but doesn't die, and he will get, then like dies again, and I don't know, but there's a scene, and it was Bruce Willis was in the ambulance, and then he's on the gurney, and then the gurney comes
yes,
out of it, and then he's like going
yep,
faster than cars, whatever, again, mindless 80s and 90s action films, but
yes,
the girl,
love it.
and this is what I'm talking. The girl next to him, just top, the top is down, and she looks up. Hey, Mister, are you going to die? What the fuck is that? If you saw a guy on the gurney just going down the highway, you're just like, do you need help? No, and she's just like all happy and smiles. Are you going to die? And I'm like, so that's what this movie is. A lot of what the fuck is going on movies. Like, you can't
Then he
help
pays
but
the
laugh.
toll, like on the. He
Oh,
throws
yes!
the coin into the toll booth.
He's like that's gonna make a difference. Like he's going through the toll anyways, but yes, he's going through his pocket and just chucks it, and then the ambulance, whatever, goes off the cliff in like typical fashion. Even before it hits the ground, just blows up because that's what
I love
cars and
that.
ambulances do. And it's
I love that shit. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about cars blowing up even further as we get towards the ending of this movie, because boy oh boy, it's got one of my favorite explanations ever at the end.
oh my god! But then it's like, all right, so they were stealing the book or the journal or whatnot. I forget. And then the little girl just beating her stuffed animal against you, like,
Yeah.
this is like the worst kid ever. Sticks her tongue out at Bruce Willis, and you're just like, again, I'm just like, what the fuck is this? And then she cries because I don't know. There's just so many what the fuck moments. I don't even know where to begin or end with this. It just they place it together, like you said, it does work. It does kind of go with the flow.
There's a
but
love
at the same
interest.
time, yes, Andy McDowell.
Yep, love me some Andy
Definitely
McDowell.
yes, love her at that time. But then you realize she's a nun, and then so after like you see her feelings, and then Bruce Willis walks away, and then she's like, "Forgive me, Father," and then you think she's praying, and then the fucking statue, the Christ statue, just all starts lighting up to talk to her. Come see me in my office. You're like, what the fuck? Like, everyone's
Yeah, the secret Vatican organization.
Yes.
I love it. Yes, this movie is the prequel to Da Vinci Code. I'm 100% convinced. This is before you watch Da Vinci Code, you have to watch Hudson Hawk just to get that lore and the backstory of everything that's going on there. 100%. It's got to be connected to Da Vinci Code somehow. But again, it kind of like gets all cobbled together, and it's funny. It's a bunch of gags all lined up, which I'm okay with that. Gags are fine in a movie, but I don't. Unless you want to talk about something else, I'd love to discuss what happens to Danny Aiello in his story arc in this movie, because it's one of those things where even now I still laugh out loud when the scene happens.
Yeah, let's go for it. Go ahead.
So, Danny Aiello gets into a a limousine or something like that. Gets into a shootout. It's very climactic. Everything's going on. He gets locked into this limousine, which goes off of a cliff and explodes, and everybody watches this happen. Now, fast forward to after everything works out, like, Bruce Willis, Andy McDowell literally fly out of the castle and are safe. They run into Danny Aiello again, who is actually alive with no broken bones. He just has a little bit of scorches on his shirt. And they ask him, like, how did you survive? And he says, oh, it was like the water like system, like the
Yeah.
fire system in the limousine. And then Bruce
The
Willis
explosions,
goes,
water sprinklers.
Bruce Willis is like, yeah, that's probably what happened.
They're like the crash is like airbags, like oh my god. So yes,
That all
for
makes
those who haven't seen,
sense.
this is the second fake out death for Danny Ayo. The first one kind of happened quickly, because it sets up a little, to save both their hides. They both fall, whatever, 3 or 4 stories, land on the concrete, pretend to do a fist fight. Well, you don't realize that then he gets shot.
Yes.
Ambulance takes away. He happens to be alive. So yes, then here's this death scene, which is more traumatic. But so yes, Bruce Willis and Andy McDowell see him go over the edge. Like,
Yes.
oh my god, like this is, all right, this is the real death. And then they have that flying contraption. They're safe. They save the day. He's like, let's get a cappuccino. Like all of a sudden they're like, oh, I wish he was here. Like not even heartbroken. This is just like not even like a few hours later.
I know.
And then they're just like, it's just like if you would have gone over the edge of like, oh, I wish Soto was here, but let's get a cappuccino,
Yeah.
bud.
Right, let's forget about it. Yeah, and then everything just kind of worked out. Danny Aiello lived, and Bruce Willis like, yeah, which reminds me of a plot hole, very similar, but like has that same comedic effect in Big Trouble in Little China, where they're going at the end of it, they're trying to escape the whole place, and then they look up and the little dude that's been helping them out is like at the top of a hole. And they're like, how'd you get there? And he's like, it wasn't easy. Just skipped right over that plot hole. Was like, it was just hard. It's like, okay, it was just hard. Let's keep on moving with the movie. No need to explain. And I think that was the most hilarious. In some way, Bruce Willis had to know that was going to be like an inside joke and kind of funny. And I think it works for me. And the whole entire, he gets a cappuccino and throws it away and becomes part of the storybook thing. I mean, that's what this is. This is just like one of those really funny cartoons. It's a little storybook. It doesn't really ask anything of you. It's got some cheesy moments that are definitely outdated, but
You mean like
I
the Three
see
Stooges
nothing
fight
wrong.
scene where he's like,
Oh, yeah.
up, down.
Yeah, he's like, how do I get off this thing? I'm like, clearly,
How do I?
right. How do I stop this? It's like, and then the guy like jumps over the fucking fence, like just dies. I don't know. I mean, the movie is not asking you to take it seriously in any sort of way, and I mean, I think it's brilliant, and I'll continue to watch Hudson Hawk as long as it's around in some form, because every once in a while I just need to watch something that's just really stupid, but also makes
This
me
is
laugh
it.
a lot. That's what it does.
This, you know what? If you need something, for lack of better terms, that rots your brain, you don't have to think. You can enjoy.
Rots your
simple
brain.
Well, but, you're just sitting back like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't remember the story. You're gonna remember the stupid scenes. What you love from the Kit Kat being the stunt double to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, any final words? For Hudson Hawk. I know we.
Yeah, my final words is that again, yes, this is dumb, but it is a fantastic movie, and I think for it to be rated as low as 33%, I mean it's up there with some of the comedies I've seen. You just can't take it seriously. Like, and honestly, why are you taking movies seriously? That's the real question. If you're like too cool for Hudson Hawk, then you need to reevaluate what's up. That's my final statement.
Agreed. So anyhow, that is our latest episode of Rotten Taste. Let us know what you thought of Hudson Hawk. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? What were your favorite parts? Is there any movies you want us to take a look at further on? Until next time, make it a bad movie night.
Peace.